everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got an epic show ahead, but just remember, if any of you have experiences you'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you. You can either email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com or head over to paranormalportal.net and scroll down and find the button that says Interview Me, and that'll allow you to look at a calendar of possible times and dates and find a date that works for you. Love to hear your stories, so definitely get in touch with me. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal podcast. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you all for joining me and being a part of the journey. As always, thank you so much for all your love and kindness, all your support, and thank you to those who continue to share the show to people that may not have heard of it before. I really appreciate your endorsement. So I've got an epic show for you guys today, and this one is a really cool one for me personally. I've been a consumer of paranormal writing and articles for years and long before I actually started a show. But the gentleman I'm about to introduce you to is one of my writing heroes, and I've been reading his stuff for years. I was always fantastically blown away by his ability to do some deep research. And even since doing the shows myself, I will research a topic and he will end up writing an article about it eventually, and he finds so many more things than I could ever have dreamed of finding. So I've been just fascinated and enthralled, and it is my great pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce you to him here, or him to you. However that works. But I am talking about Mr. Brent Swancer, and he's a paranormal writer and journalist, and he's been writing for Mysterious Universe for about 10 years. And he's also a writer for a Japanese magazine called MU. And he's also got an incredible Facebook group. So any of you guys on Facebook that want to get to know the guy and see what's going on in his group, it is called Dark League Paranormal. League, League, in case I'm not enunciating well. So please check him out. Please support what he's doing. And without further delay, ladies and gentlemen, let me get him on here. Hey, Brent, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me on.
This is really a cool time for me because it's one thing to, appreciate and be a fan of someone's work, but it's a whole nother thing to get to know you. And I've known you a little bit online through our back and forths on Facebook over the years. And I've really thoroughly enjoyed your work, as I stated. In a lot of ways, I'm just floored by what you do and how you do it and how well you do it. But I got to ask you kind of the big question. What brought you into this? How did you get started? Or what was it? Did you have paranormal experiences, or is it just an ongoing fascination? Where did this come from?
Well, when I was a kid, I was sort of into the paranormal. I used to read, stuff by John Keel, Brad Steiger,
Sure,
Charles Berlitz, and I thought it was really cool, these amazing stories that they told. But at the time, it was kind of just a passing interest. It wasn't anything that I seriously pursued. But then I have a story. It's kind of a long story, I suppose. But there was some experience I did have that really, really pulled me into the paranormal.
Ooh, love to hear it. I mean, whatever you want to share, I'd love to hear, brother. So the floor is yours.
Well, I wrote an article on this a while ago, and this happened when I was, this must have been back in maybe 1992, 93. I was just about to head off to university. I was only 18. And I decided suddenly I'm going to take a road trip to Colorado to visit one of my friends out there.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to drive out there. It's a pretty long drive. So my parents were a little bit skeptical. They're like, are you going to be okay? I didn't have much money, but it was kind of a whim, really. And I said, no, I'm going to do it. And I thought, hey, man, what kind of trouble am I going to run into? It's a straight drive there, straight drive back. No biggie. So I got out on the road. I left kind of late. It was starting to get dark. And I don't know if you've ever taken that drive before, but
Mm-mm.
man, there is nothing. It is, it is like a moonscape of desert as far as the eye can see.
Wow.
And you start getting kind of hypnotized by it. And I was getting tired. It was getting dark. The lane lines are kind of flickering by. And I found myself kind of nodding off at the wheel, really. So I pulled into the first rest area I could find just to get a couple hours of shut eye. Nobody's there. This is the middle of nowhere, literally nothing. Not a single other car there. I stopped, I fell asleep, and that should have been the end of the story. A couple hours later, I don't know how much time had passed, but I hear this tap, 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 tap at my window.
Uh-oh.
And I woke up. I woke up, and in my window, just kind of looming there, is this kid, not much older than I was, maybe early 20s, dressed normally, not like a vagrant or anything, staring at me through my window. And he just says simply, open the door.
Oh.
I said, no, I don't think so. And I noticed there's light, and I thought it was morning, but it wasn't morning. There was a truck back there with a big spotlight pointed at the ground, and that was what was giving off the light. And I could see this guy. It was kind of eerie. I'm wondering what this guy's doing out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night, asking me to open up my door. And there were two other people standing behind him. And the guy says, open the door again. And I said, no. And I noticed that these people in the background, it's hard for me to really describe it. They were a little bit blurry, a little bit
Oh.
staticky, like as if they were kind of struggling to exist, really. Like they were just like out of focus. And it was really freaking me. And I thought maybe I'm just tired. Maybe I need sleep. Is this a nightmare?
Yeah.
And I had a knife with me, okay? And I know this is stupid. I was 18 years old. I don't know how to use this knife. I don't plan on using it. But I had it with me, and it's one of these little ones that you use your thumb to flip open. I flipped it open, just kind of held that out in front of me, thinking maybe I'll scare these guys away. Maybe this guy will leave me alone if he thinks I'm crazy and I have a knife. He went ballistic. This guy snarled like an animal,
Oh, God.
shoved my car, the strip of metal above your windows. He shoved that part. The whole car shook, shuddered. I swear I could feel the two tires lift off the ground and thump back down. I can't explain how alarmed I was at that point that this skinny guy managed to just push my car off the ground, started screaming, let me in, let me in. There was a girl behind him 50 feet away, like that. She's at my window. And
Oh,
she
wow.
calmly says, just open the door. I freaked out. I started my engine, which surprisingly started. I thought for sure they must have, done something to my engine so I couldn't get away. I tore out of there. Suddenly, the spotlight on the truck flips up and the spotlight's following me. And I'm driving, I'm picking up speed. I look to the side, and one of these guys, I don't know which one of them, is running beside my car. running. I'm reaching 35, 40 miles an hour. And this
Oh,
guy is running next to my car, comes up, bangs on my window. I know this sounds like a really spectacular story, but this is completely true. I mean, even talking about it now is kind of freaking me out.
yeah.
Banged on my window. I reached the highway, picked up some speed, maybe about 50 miles an hour. He fell back in the distance, but that light stayed on me until I was out of sight. I'm shaking with adrenaline, you know. I'm like, oh my God, what in the world? And I
Wow.
just pulled over to the nearest populated area into like a little diner, and I just sat down and I'm about to throw up because of all this, and I'm just shaking. And the waitress is asking me, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I almost had an accident on the freeway. I didn't want to tell her."
Yeah. Right.
But that was obviously not a normal experience, and that made me realize that there are things that I cannot explain.
Yeah.
And I feel like, in a sense, I talked to a friend of mine about this. In a sense, it was kind of an initiation to
Yeah.
this new world that I didn't realize. And suddenly, everything I read in John Keel, Brad Steiger, Berlitz, I'm thinking, maybe there's something to that. Maybe there are things that we are not meant to understand or we can't understand. And
Right.
that experience really pulled me in. I knew there was something beyond explanation. I still don't know what they were. I've had all kinds of theories thrown at me. There were vampires,
Yeah.
there were skinwalkers, if you know what skinwalkers are.
Sure.
I was in Nevada at the time, so apparently they say that's Skinwalker Central. So a lot of people think there were skinwalkers, which are, for people listening who might not know, they're like mostly from Navajo folklore.
Hmm.
They're like evil shamans that were outcast, and they have shape shifting abilities, and they have all these strange superhuman powers. A lot of people said they're skinwalkers. I still have no idea.
Right.
All I know is that they were not human. That was not normal. I was not on drugs. I was not drinking. I was only 18. I mean, I had just woken up from sleeping, but I was not hallucinating this at all.
Right. Well,
And
what a way to come into it, though. Yeah.
yeah, and I was just kind of shoved into it, really.
Yeah.
And after that experience, I didn't tell my mom found out when she read my article on it. She's like, "You never told me about this." I finally came out and exposed it to the world. You know, I kept it quiet for years. I didn't tell anybody
Hmm.
about this because I thought nobody's going to believe me. But an interesting footnote to this story, um, after I published that article, I was contacted by somebody who claims they were from the FBI. And I said, "Why are you contacting me?" And they said at that time, they read my article, and they didn't put any stock in the paranormal aspect, but they said that there had been a string of strange disappearances and
Ooh.
unsolved murders along that same road. I think it was I-80, Interstate 80,
Oh, wow.
at the same time I was there.
Oh,
Isn't that eerie?
that's really creepy, especially thinking that could have been you. You could have been one of those
It
numbers,
could
you
have
know?
been me. And I don't honestly think I was meant to make it out of there alive, to be honest.
Wow.
And they said there were other disappearances and murders in that same area where I was at the time. And they were asking me all the questions. Where were you? Do you remember which rest stop? I said, I don't know, man. I was in the middle of nowhere. I don't know which rest stop it was.
Right.
But I think it was I-80 I was taking, the interstate. And he said, that's exactly where we had these. And I talked to him for a while, and then he just fell off the face of the earth. He asked me a bunch of questions, had no interest in the paranormal spin. You know what I mean? Had no
Yeah.
interest at all in that.
Yeah, I think that was probably out of his pay grade, honestly, right?
Yeah, I think it's out of his pay grade. And I had another guy, some anonymous guy who came forward to me. I wrote an article on this as well, um, who claimed that he knew what happened and that it was. I don't put any stock in this, okay? A
Sure.
disclaimer. But he claimed that they were escapees from an underground secret base,
Oh,
which I'm skeptical, okay, about
yeah,
that theory, but this guy claimed he sounded pretty legit, but I kind of politely said thank you for your input,
sure, yeah,
because I had long put out a public, imploring people to tell me what did I experience out there? What was this?
sure.
And I answered me with this big long story about these secret bases, and they were doing all kinds of experiments with like teleportation and human genetic manipulation and
Wow, yeah, that's a
weird,
lot to
weird.
digest. Yeah, yeah,
The story got weirder as time went on, but the basics is what I told you. I have no theory on it.
yeah.
All I can tell you is that they were definitely not human.
Did it look when the guy that was looking in your window, telling you to open the window or open the door? Did he look like he might have had Native American or First Nations blood, or did he? How did
Not
he appear?
particularly. No, he was a white guy.
Okay,
Um, it looked like a totally normal college age white guy. I mean, he was dressed casually. He wasn't. I mean,
okay,
he could have had. It was a little dark. I couldn't tell. I mean, maybe. I mean, he did have brown hair and brown eyes. From what I could tell, he could have had Native American blood. I mean,
okay.
I can't for sure. But
Just because the idea of the skinwalker, I would think that it follows that heritage to a degree. I've never heard of a Caucasian skinwalker. Not that it couldn't exist, but that would be a first for me personally.
he may have had Native American blood. It was very hard to tell. I was so scared at the time that I wasn't really paying attention to details like that. But he was brown hair, brown eyed, so he may have been.
Sure.
But it was just very alarming and
Yeah.
very scary experience that I still have no explanation for. And I was going to say something else, but yeah, that's basically my
Well, that's
big introduction to the paranormal.
that's a hell of a baptism.
Oh,
Honestly.
baptism by fire, yeah.
Yeah. And now, prior to this, did you? I mean, clearly you had it seems like you had an open mind for this stuff as you were talking about reading Charles Berlitz and several other of those authors.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I had an interest in it, but it was
Yeah.
a kind of a passing interest. I never really was a believer in any of this stuff. I just thought it was interesting.
Sure. Yeah.
And I was always kind of the one to be looking for the more rational explanation
Hmm.
to some of these things. You know what I mean? I was a
Yeah.
open-minded skeptic.
Yeah.
I
Fair
would.
enough. Fair enough. And I think that's honestly, I really subscribe to that point of view myself. I mean, I've had a lot of strange experiences too, but I think that you have to examine these things through the eyes of a skeptic.
Right.
Otherwise,
Yeah, I still do that. Yeah.
yep, as do I. I think that's a good takeaway. So then you had this experience, and it was quite a number of years later when you decided, I'm just going to start writing these articles, huh?
Yeah, I felt compelled to do it. And I spent quite a few years just studying up on this kind of thing. And I didn't think writing was a viable thing to do. I didn't know how to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just followed a lot of paranormal sites and I was a commenter. And one of the things I got really interested in was cryptozoology,
Oh, sure.
study of, hidden or undiscovered animals, for those listening who don't know. Um, and I started commenting for Loren Coleman on his X site Cryptomundo. It's still going. It's not under his ownership anymore.
Hmm.
But I was writing articles for him, and he basically got me into it because he said, I really like your comments. You want to write some guest posts? So based on those guest posts, I kind of was a launching pad for
Oh.
writing other things. And finally, I got in touch with Mysterious Universe and started writing for them. And then I've been pretty much writing for them the whole time ever since. So, but it took me a couple years to start writing about this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I was kind of just trying to process it, really. I mean, it took me years to get over this. I mean, this was a very traumatic, weird experience that had shown me that there is something that is going on out there
Mm-hmm.
that I can't explain. I can't find any explanation for what I did, for what I saw.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess that makes sense because what you saw isn't supposed to exist. And traditional wisdom would say, no, that's impossible. But
Yeah.
you saw it, so that's so powerful. Now,
I saw it and I stand by it, and I've publicly written an article about it, and now
mhm,
I'm fully out in the open about it. I mean, people can say, "Oh, you're crazy," or "Yo, you must have been drinking," or "Oh, I don't care." I did experience this, and
yeah,
I have no explanation for it. If anybody does, then feel free to contact me.
right. Well, and I'm sure there's lots of people that would, as you experienced already, that would tell you exactly what it is according
Oh
to
yeah,
according to their paradigm. And I'm not putting those people down. I think it's, everybody's looking for answers, I think, but it is very interesting how wide a net you can cast by saying, what did I experience? And you'll get a lot of varied feedback. But so
one.
go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, one thing I noticed from this experience, and I've noticed with some other phenomena, is that the fact that these things, whatever they were, asked, basically asked to be let in.
Yeah.
They wanted me to open up the door. They wanted me to let them in. That guy pushed my car pretty much off the ground. He could have easily broken that. They could have easily gotten in if they wanted to. They had to be let in. And this is a recurring theme with a lot of phenomena. Black-eyed kids, got to be let in.
Mm-hmm.
Vampires, you got to invite them in.
Yep.
I don't know why that is. It sounds weird. It sounds wacky. But for some reason, it seems like some of these entities need to be let in. They can't
Yeah.
get in and invite them. Why? Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know either, but that is a great take. It's like, why? Why? What's providence do we hold that we have to surrender before they can be empowered? And that's fascinating to me. And it does seem to suggest that there's at least the implication then of rules. That
Yeah, there's some kind of rule.
right.
We don't understand them. We're probably not even meant to understand it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
some demonic entities are also said to have to be invited in. If you don't invite them in, they can't have a hold over you. I
right.
mean, what is this thing about being invited? I don't get it.
There's
And
another
I would have
thing.
never believed it, but you
Right.
know,
There's another
yeah.
thing about demons that really cooks my bacon as well. And that
Mm,
is that it's believed in a lot of circles dealing with demons that if you name a demon, you are in effect summoning its attention to you.
right,
So therefore, by citing a name, you're making it aware of you. But which I guess would be empowering to this entity. But in rites of exorcism, at least with the Catholics,
mm,
they try to get the demon to name itself, and if it
right.
does, it's weakened.
It's
So
weakened because it's not getting the power that you're in giving it by naming it for itself. Yeah.
right, like it's surrendering its power at that point when it's been forced to say the name, and I find
Well,
that
they
really
say things.
fascinating.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Also, with like apparently they're drawn to Ouija boards.
Oh sure,
Like
yeah,
using a Ouija board is basically inviting it in. The same basic trope of this they need this invitation. They need you to have this kind of power.
right,
They need you to empower it to do something, like you said with the demonic possession.
hmm
They need to be empowered.
yes.
weird, and that links to the story I told. It seems like they needed to be invited in. I'm not sure why that is.
Right, but there does seem to be some guidelines, maybe some esoteric rules that they have to follow. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know who's marshaling this along or who's
right,
supervising all this, but you'd think we'd at least get a copy of the rules so we know what we're doing.
right, exactly. I want a copy of those rules. I want the manual. You
Exactly,
know,
or the cheat codes. Come on, something.
the cheat codes.
So of all of the stories when you were beginning to be a writer, when you're embarking on
Right.
this journey, and this I'm asking from a very personal place because I went through this whole thing myself. But how much has your ideals and ideas of this stuff changed as you've been diving down these rabbit holes?
That's a hard question.
Sure.
But as I dive down these rabbit holes and I wade through seas of weird stuff, researching articles, and it's really opened my eyes to a lot of phenomena that I didn't even realize existed. And it's weird because in some ways, and for some cases, I've become more of a believer in the reality of it. But also researching other cases, I've become more skeptical. So the more knowledge I've gained, the more at the same time I'm becoming more of a open-minded for some things and skeptical for other things.
Yeah.
A two-way street, you know what I mean? It's hard to explain, but if that makes any sense.
Sure.
Um,
It really
but yeah,
does. Yeah, it really makes sense to me. And maybe it's by virtue of the fact that all of these subjects dealing with the paranormal, Fortean, supernatural, strange anomalies, they're all discarded by like the scientists,
right.
and these academics and these clinicians don't acknowledge it. So it's left to all of us. Like, there's my dogs.
Yeah.
But it's left to all of the lay people to pick up the mantle and try to make sense out of it. So,
Yeah, and I
I
think also the paranormal is, I think it's actually the normal that we just don't understand yet. And science just can't understand it because we lack the means to understand it at the time.
yeah,
But I don't think it's anything that's impossible to prove. It's just we can't do it at the moment. So yeah, it's up to lay people like us, researchers, and so on.
yeah. It's always fascinating to me how transformative this is to dive into this material and then
Right.
realize how much you don't know. Because I think
Right.
we all come into it
The
with
more
this
you know,
idea.
the more you don't, really.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's so many more holes. Like your formative ideas about it were fine when you were just passively interested, but once you start talking to people and once you start hearing their experiences, it all transforms into something else. And
Right.
for example, like one of the things that really boggles my imagination, and I'd love your take on this as a person
Mm,
that
yeah.
researches the hell out of this stuff,
Mm,
is the bleed through. It basically sometimes it's hard to tell the difference between a haunting or some kind of extraterrestrial contact or
oh yeah.
even cryptozoological encounters with these paranormal Bigfoot and stuff. What is your
Oh
take on
yeah.
that?
It's interesting because I mean, you get into, like, for example, Bigfoot, and it seems pretty straightforward. It seems like, oh, it must be an undiscovered. Well, if you believe it, if you put any stock in it, then it must be an undiscovered hominid, hairy ape man. And you get lots of reports that are just like that. But then you have these other reports that report them coming out of UFOs or disappearing into thin air or coming out of portals. I've written a couple articles on that. So what do you do with reports like that? Do you just dismiss them and just hold on to the paradigm that you believe it's a flesh and blood animal? I mean, if you're going to accept those reports, you've also got to kind of accept the other reports that say, no, this is weirder than an undiscovered animal. And it's kind of hard to find a balance between, are they the same thing? Are they two different things? Are they connected in any way? Maybe disappearing Bigfoot are a completely different phenomena than other Bigfoot. That's kind of hard to reconcile. You know what I mean? You get these
Yes.
completely varying reports that you can't just cherry pick the reports you like, you know.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
got to take into account that if this guy says he saw a Bigfoot that stepped through a portal and disappeared into thin air, that's just, you got to give that just as much weight as a guy who said a Bigfoot came into my campsite and stole my s'mores. You know what I mean? You gotta, which one are you going to believe? And I think a lot of people believe the one that fits their paradigm.
Yeah.
If they believe it's a flesh and blood animal, they're going to believe those reports.
Hmm.
If they believe it's something more interdimensional or whatever,
Hmm.
they're going to believe those reports. And I think, if you went into a Bigfoot convention and mentioned UFOs and Bigfoot, you might get laughed out of the house. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And it's kind of sad because we're all trying to find the truth.
Right.
We're all in the same boat, trying to kind of navigate our way through this paranormal and this mysterious world. And you get these factions that are like, no, it's a flesh and blood animal. No, it's an interdimensional being.
Yeah, exactly.
They're detrimental to actually finding out what's going on, I think.
Yeah, you're right. And I think that, I think you're absolutely right with that, it doesn't, I don't think anybody could possibly, explain the true nature of what these things are, because nobody's got one,
Yeah.
as Wes Germer says on Sasquatch Chronicles. Nobody
Yeah.
has them in their garage. Nobody's studying them. So there's a lot of ideas and conjecture and speculation. But I think we can all basically agree that they are at least sometimes physical, at least sometimes, because they
Yeah.
leave footprints, they're leaving hair, they interact with physical objects. They've been observed dragging roadkill or killing things. So
Killing things, throwing rocks,
right, yeah,
banging
throwing
on
rocks,
trees.
exactly, yeah,
And I think in the case of Bigfoot, I think it might be different phenomena at play there. I think
mm,
there are some that are definitely flesh and blood animals,
right,
and then there are other phenomena that are not, when they just have a superficial resemblance to Bigfoot, but it's probably something totally different.
right,
Uh,
or a mimic,
that's
maybe,
one
yeah,
way to think about it. Yeah,
yeah. That's a great thought possibility. Could be a mimic. There's
could be a
plenty.
mimic tricksters. They talk
Right.
about cosmic tricksters who do these things just for the fun of it. I mean,
Yeah,
you
that
know what
makes
I mean?
sense. Yeah, fair enough. Wow.
So yeah,
No, I think that's fascinating, and I think that's a great take. But you're right. The spirit of cooperation really isn't there because everybody's in their paradigms, button heads.
isn't there? Yeah, you
Yeah.
got the UFO people that don't like the Bigfoot people, and you got the Bigfoot people who don't like the UFO people.
Yeah.
You got the ghost hunters that don't like either one of them. You know what I mean? You got a lot of, and
Yeah.
in writing, and I talked to a lot of other writers, and I've butted heads with some other people in the field, and some of them are not on the same boat. They're not on the same page.
Right.
They're squabbling instead of trying to figure out what's really going on. And a lot of the times they're squabbling just to be able to sell something to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They want to
that's the
know.
sad part. Yeah, and it does. It becomes a business. You're right. That's a real good takeaway and a good thing to remember is that some people are trying to take the golden path on this
Yeah.
idea.
And
So
it's usually the people who claim that they know if they know everything. I always think that anybody who says that they know the answers probably doesn't.
Yeah.
You
No,
know what I
fair
mean? In
enough.
this field, nobody knows the answers.
Yeah.
We're all just trying to find our way through it
Hmm.
and find out what we can. If anybody claims they have all the answers, that's a big red flag to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. I wonder though. You said that of all of the different topics under this umbrella of the paranormal, which I always include everything under that because paranormal just means not normal. So,
Right, right.
uh,
I'm the
you said,
same. I'm the same. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, you said that you were really most fascinated with cryptozoology. Would that be right?
For a while, I was mostly into cryptozoology.
Okay.
For a long time, cryptozoology was my thing. I wrote a lot of articles on Japanese cryptids translated from Japanese sources that I think I'm the first person to provide an English translation for some of those cases.
Wow.
So cryptozoology was a major passion of mine.
Yeah.
But it's not only cryptozoology. Like I said, I had that experience, so I've been interested in all kinds of aspects of the paranormal. And as the years have gone by, I've branched out into pretty much everything.
Right.
You
Okay. No, I think that's fascinating. Like for me personally, I've had quite a few ghostly experiences. Have you had any of those?
Yeah, actually, I think that was in the same article I wrote, where I mentioned that one about the highway and the rest area.
Mm-hmm.
I think I saw a ghost in Japan,
Ooh,
uh, in broad daylight,
really?
at a crowded park. We were at a crowded park doing the cherry blossoms. I don't know if you know the cherry blossoms.
Oh,
It's about
sure.
this time of
Yep.
year. Right now they're just starting to fall off the trees now, but we were having a cherry blossom picnic, which is a big thing in Japan. You have a picnic and you eat food and just kind of enjoy the cherry blossoms. And we were at the really crowded park, and there was a rock, and then a drop off in like a river that goes through. So there's nowhere to go. I saw this little girl in a red dress just kind of run across in front of us and go behind that rock. I didn't think anything of it. I thought, oh, look at little girls running around in a red dress. And I just kind of looked at that rock and she never came out.
Mm,
And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. Where did she go?
yeah.
I walked over there, I said, I'm going to take a walk around. And I just passed the rock. Nobody's there. The river, I looked down in the river. I don't see anything. At first, I thought, I gotta be imagining, because there's really, really, literally nowhere she could have gone. It's a crowded park.
Uh huh.
I was so kind of, at first, I kind of wrote it off, but then I started checking the news to see if there was a missing girl or anything. Nothing, nothing. I asked, you know, a couple people, did you see that girl in the red dress? Nobody saw any girl in the red dress.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that was, but there is really no way any girl could hide behind that rock and not be seen coming out unless
Right.
she fell into the river. And if she fell into the river, it would have been in the news. Nothing was
Right.
in the news. I think I saw something. I think it might have been a ghost in broad daylight in the middle of this crowded park.
Wow.
She kind of ran behind this little rock. I mean, there's no way she could have even gone off where I couldn't see her. I mean, really weird. I don't know if it's just a little glitch in the matrix or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Uh, I haven't really explained that. I haven't had any really spooky, ghostly experiences, but that one, that one's a little weird. Yeah,
That one counts. Yep, that's
yeah,
plenty weird. Now, isn't there? I'm kind of putting you on the spot here a little bit, but
yeah.
isn't there a something in? I think it's Thailand where if you see an apparition of a girl in a red dress, that's supposed to be an omen for something bad going to happen.
Oh, I don't. I'm not. I've never heard of that, but I hope not. Jeez.
What's
Hope that doesn't apply to Japan.
Sorry, this just happened, or how long ago did this happen?
No, this happened for quite a few years ago.
Okay, good. Yeah. Then
Yeah.
you're probably out of the woods.
Oh, you're starting to give me a heart attack here.
You're probably okay now.
Yeah, I think I'm okay. I mean, I've had some trials and tribulations since then, so
Well,
maybe I worked
maybe.
out that whatever bad karma came off of that. But
We'll chalk it up to completed, paid in full.
yeah, paid in full.
No, that's fascinating. Now, with UFOs, you've got your pulse on, or your finger on the pulse of all of this. So I've got to ask you, what do you think about the kind of quote unquote disclosures that are going on? Do you think that it's finally coming out in the open, or what do you think with all of that?
I think, as far as disclosure goes, in my opinion, this is just my opinion.
Sure.
I don't think the government is ever going to come out and say, yes, there are aliens. Okay, guys, we got alien bodies.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Aliens are real. I think it's going to be more of a soft disclosure. Like they're letting things leak out, like those Navy videos taken out of San Diego, I believe it was.
Yep.
The military admitted, yep, that happened. We don't know what it is. They don't say aliens. They specifically avoid saying aliens.
Right.
But to admit that that's real and to not try to cover it up, that's soft disclosure.
Sure.
They're warming people up to the idea that these things are out there, and they're going to warm us up to it because we're going to figure it out. UFOologists are not stupid.
No.
These are smart guys looking into this stuff.
Yep.
And they're going to find it. They're going to find the evidence they need. There are some really good documentaries. And they're finding all kinds of high-level witnesses that have seen these things. No reason to lie.
Yep.
And it's kind of a soft disclosure. It's these reports, but people who really don't want to believe it can still say, "Oh, they must be making it up," or "Oh, it must be, Chinese spy planes," or "Oh, it must be," But it's opening people's minds to the possibility that aliens are here, maybe, and people are not going to freak out as much when the ufologists who are uncovering this stuff come up with hard evidence and say, look, guys, I mean, what are you going to do if there's an alien body there? What do you do? And I think the government knows that this is inevitable, and they're letting out little pieces, little breadcrumbs.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. I think it's going to be more of a soft disclosure rather than... I don't... The U.S. government really is in on it. Like, a lot of people say the president of the United States is going to make a big announcement about UFOs. I don't think the president knows any more than... I think they're kept out of the loop. You know what I mean? I think it's plausible deniability.
Sure.
And I think the real gatekeepers of this information are mostly privatized.
Yeah.
Rather
the idea of the shadow government. Yeah.
Right. Like that. I think that's probably closer to the truth. This is my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I don't know the answers, but
No.
this is just my idea. I don't think the government knows much more than a lot of us do.
Right.
I mean, some of the people that were entrenched in those programs know.
Yeah.
But I think the president would be kept intentionally in the dark about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, because considering they're only around 48 years, yeah.
Right, and he can't leak anything. What can he? He can't say anything if he doesn't know anything.
Yep.
Plausible deniability.
Yep, I think you're right. You're right. So, do you have an opinion on where these things could be from? Like, do you believe that they might be transdimensional, or are they perhaps here and always have been, like in Hidden Earth or Hollow Earth, or do you think they actually do come
Tough
from?
question. I've looked into so many different theories on that
Sure.
to me, the one that I tend to gravitate towards
Mhm.
as far as theories is that there's something perhaps interdimensional.
Sure. Okay.
Just talking about the vast distances involved and the logistics of coming here. I mean, there's no real reason why aliens even need to come here anyway. There's plenty of water and asteroids and
Yeah.
planetoids.
Yep.
They don't need to get water.
Yep.
They don't. The minerals in our planet can be found anywhere in the universe. I mean, this is kind of a hard pill to swallow for humans, but there's nothing really special about our planet except life.
Right. Fair
So
enough.
they're either coming here to study life or they're interdimensional, can just flip back and forth whenever they want. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's no light speed travel. They just pop in here, pop out, do whatever they're doing. Who knows what that is? I mean, I don't know why they're here.
I don't
If
either.
they are,
It's the
yeah,
big it's the big $1 million question, if you will. But I think you're right, that the transdimensional thing seems to make quite a bit of sense. But I don't know.
makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what
It,
it means to come from a galaxy far, far away, and what that would take energetically or whatever. Or yeah, and I don't
I
presume.
mean, they might be able to bend the laws of
Sure.
light speed. There are theories about how they can do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, physics are physics pretty much everywhere you go.
Right. Yep.
Only so much they can do. I mean, to get here seems like a lot of work for a planet that in the big picture isn't really that special.
Yeah.
I, why
Well,
would they do it?
I think we're the intergalactic 7-Eleven is what I'm thinking.
Right. Maybe. I think a lot of, one of my other ideas that I've floated around in a while is that they probably maybe didn't even come to us intentionally.
Right. Yeah.
It could have just been passing through and thought, well,
Yeah.
that's weird. There's a planet there with these humans on it. Let's check it out.
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah.
Could have been intergalactic miners for all we know, just kind of passing through like in an Amazon forest, a bunch of loggers, and they see this new species.
Right.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah.
Splat. I hope not, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe we're like a safari for intergalactic
Yeah, it could be a
travelers. Who knows?
safari.
But
Because
yeah,
we do have life that makes our planet special. So
I think it does. I don't. I
yeah.
don't. I don't pretend to know, obviously, and nobody does how much life is out there. But maybe life is abundant, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's
Yeah, it's hard to say.
maybe it's a real gem, and that would cause them to invest the time and energy to make these
Right. That's what I
journeys.
think it would be.
Yeah.
It would be if they're going to come here, it's probably for the life.
Yeah.
Depending on how, like you said, how prevalent it is in the universe.
Yeah. And I know that I've been kind of throwing you these 30,000-foot view questions, but I wanted our audience to get a chance to know you, because
Okay.
I would really like for you to be coming back to the show and doing segments
Yeah,
with
I'd love
me.
to.
Yeah.
Love to, yeah.
And I really appreciate you taking the time today, brother, and making this happen. But could you let people know how to stay in touch with you?
Yeah. If you want to join my Facebook group, I'm always on there. I respond to a lot of people. I'm very easily reached on there. It's called Dark League Paranormal. Dark, DARK, League, LEAGUE, Paranormal.
Hmm.
That's my Facebook page. It's easy to see my work there. I post my work, past work, and new work all the time. I'm very engaged with my members.
Hmm.
Um, and there on there, if you want to talk to me more personally or give me a personal account, we can work out something with email and I can send, because I'm a collector of accounts. I love people's first person accounts. I
Yes.
have files of these, and I'm going to ask you, Brent,
Yes,
one of
sir.
these days to get some of your stories.
Yeah, I'd be honored. I'd be honored to be.
Files. Yeah.
I'd be honored to be one of your files, Brent.
Excellent.
So I do want to take a moment though and mention that you are now working on a book, correct?
I'm working on a book. It's actually finished. It's in the editing stages. It's about halfway done. I have an editor who's going through it, and after the editing's done, it'll be finished. Okay. And then I'm looking for a publisher.
And the subject matter is what for this book?
This particular book is very, very bonkers and strange, alien and humanoid encounters.
Wonderful.
Some of the strangest alien and humanoid and strange entities. I've got all kinds of things in there, living blobs and flying humanoids and robots and things that people have seen over the years. It is a compendium of some of the weirdest encounters you've ever heard of. So
wonderful. Well, when you get ready to put that out there, you got to come back and we'll dive into a little bit of that and let our listeners know where they can find that.
For sure. Sounds good to me.
All right, brother. Well, thank you again. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and talking with you and having this discussion today. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. It's been an honor.
All right, everybody, that's going to wrap it up for us today. So hope you guys enjoyed the show, and thank you again so much for all your love and support. And remember, if you want to follow the Paranormal Portal, probably the easiest way is to head over to paranormalportal.net. And that's the homepage for the Paranormal Portal. And you'll find links to all of our different social media and sites and information about the shows, including our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/paranormalportal. Or just look for Paranormal Portal on Google or whatever search engine, and you'll find links to our social media such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So we're kind of all over the place, and we're spreading as well as we can. But anyway, thank you so much for the love and support. You all take care, and remember, we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Until next time.